Om Tat Sat. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading energy, also known as Brahman or God, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Maharaj, to all the sages and saints of this world, and to you divine souls watching today's satsang. Today we will be studying Sutra number 18 from the Sadhana Pad of the Raja Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, commentary by my Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Ji Maharaj, and narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So Sutra number 18 is Prakasha, Kriya, Sthiti, Sheelam, Bhuta, Indriya, Atmakam, Bhoga, Apavargartham, Drishyam. So it's a slightly long sutra. Sutra is a thread. So we'll repeat. Prakasha, Kriya, Sthiti, Sheelam, Bhuta, Indriya, Atmakam, Bhoga, Apavargatham, Drishyam. So Prakash means light. Kriya is activity. Sthiti is inertia. Sheelam, nature. Bhuta are the elements, Panchabhuta. Indriyas, senses. Atmakam consists of. Bhoga, enjoyment of both pleasure and pain. Apavarga, liberation. Artham, purpose. Drishyam, scene. So lot of terms. I am going over these quickly, so you may wanna slowly rewind it and listen to these again. But the meaning of this sutra is the scene is of the nature of light, which is sattva, activity, rajas, and inertia, tamas. So the three gunas, and we have talked about the three gunas over many of our satsang videos, and it consists of the elements and the senses. It exists for the purpose of giving enjoyment and liberation to the soul. So the nature's existence, so think about it deeper, is that the soul is always free. It's the ruler of itself. It's God. It's coming from that God's energy. So it by itself is independent. But when it comes in contact with nature is when it loses its identity and therefore gets bound due to the chitta or consciousness over time. And so therefore that is the purpose of nature. But says sage Patanjali that there is a way out. We have a way to liberate ourselves, and therefore this process of sadhana and yoga. So the explanation is, according to the yogic philosophy, Prakriti or nature is the material cause of creation and consists of the balance of the three gunas, as we have talked about, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva, purity, rajas, activity, and tamas, inertia. So these three things alternate in everything that has consciousness. So rajas is the principle of activity and passion, tamas, inertia, and darkness. And these three gunas form to create the entire creation in the all three planes. So then there is Mahat, which is called the cosmic mind. Ahankara is your ego principle. And Indriyas. Indriyas are your mind, the five subtle senses, the five organs of action, the subtle elements, gross elements, physical bodies of all living beings. So this is a very deep sutra with a lot of terms, but do not despair. We will cover each of these now, and also in the future sutras it will become easy for you to understand. If you are sincerely following it, you will understand the whole reason of the existence of Purusha or an individual consciousness is to try to connect to the universal consciousness. But you can do that through the process that sage Patanjali is guiding us through his yogic Ashtang Yoga. The elements and the senses are mentioned because of their prominence in human existence, because this is where we are always running around. Our senses are controlling us. Eyes, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, all these things have a big impact, and those experiences then get stored in our consciousness. So they indicate in fact the entire range of material evolution, beginning with Prakriti and ending with the gross elements, And this field of matter is called Drishya, the seen. So it starts from Mehet or cosmic consciousness, and it keeps getting more solid form, and eventually we see the shapes and the sizes and the colors and name and form, and then therefore the whole thing becomes a drishya or a scene. And as you know, the world is very colorful. We have lots of different variations in nature. So the scene exists for the purpose of giving bhoga. That is why the nature exists, according to sage Patanjali, to give us experiences, both kinds, either joyful or painful, and apavarga. So the same nature that binds you, also through your self-effort and through your meditation, you have the ability to transcend that, and therefore you get liberation. That is called apavarga. So the soul has evolved through various experiences of pleasure and pain. And this is the deep point to be noted, that we are not just a composition of this birth alone. We have had many embodiments over through the process of reincarnation over time immemorial, really. And in each of those bodies we've had experiences of pain and pleasure, and each of those are contributing to the seer, seen and sight experience. And it basically, when we turn to yoga, this is where we start to enjoy the increasing delights of samadhi or the superconscious state. So what do we have to do? We have to transcend this magic show of Prakriti and the soul's mesmerization or its intoxication towards the world process. Therefore, vairagya or dispassion becomes very important to serious spiritual aspirants. So these allow the soul, so the soul has to, instead of looking at the world, it's there, the world is there, but it starts to focus inward instead, and it realizes that the real essence and the taste and the honey is coming from within, not from the outside. So in other words, the soul has to find its essential nature. Therein lies the trick that sage Patanjali is trying to guide us through these yogic practices. But once we have para-vairagya, that means it's supreme dispassion, where our single focus becomes on attaining mukti or self-realization. And then at that stage, the self turns away from the chitta itself. It is no longer intoxicated or mesmerized or involved in the magic show. So the very same Prakriti that has involved the soul in matter, in Prakriti, now promotes the withdrawal of the soul from the bondage of matter. So the same Prakriti now is no longer going to have any influence on the soul, and then the soul gradually progresses in the different states of Samadhi, and we had covered that in Sadhana Pad, if you will. Samadhi Pad, sorry. We had covered that in Samadhi Pad in great detail about the different kinds of 6 kinds of Samadhis. But the eventual Samadhi, which is the final entry before your actual liberation, is called asampragyata samadhi, in which the very seed of the consciousness, the very seed of the impressions of karmas are also destroyed, and that's the highest state of superconsciousness, wherein it is liberated. At that point, after that comes Kaivalya, or achieving the liberated state, and that is when you are freed from the cycles of birth and death. This is known as nature's way of giving you apavarga or freedom. The world process that every soul encounters is never without a purpose. So that's why we say there's a divine plan. Nature does not unfold conditions in life in a chaotic manner, which means there's a deep intelligence underlying every flower that vibrates, every little ant that walks. There is a nature's plan in it. The divine purpose of leading the soul to the awareness of the intrinsic reality of the self is part of the nature's plan. It's implicit, and we evolve accordingly. Om Tat Sat. I hope you understand this sutra. This is not an easy sutra to digest. very deep, but if you understand this, you will greatly and rapidly progress. If you have any questions or need clarification, feel free to send me a comment or contact me, and I will be happy to guide you further. But I hope you're enjoying these daily sutras from Sage Patanjali and my Guruji, Swamiji, and I am their humble servant, trying to do this small service to guide each of you accordingly with these deep insights from the Sanatana Dharma and from the Yoga Sutras. Om Tat Sat.